Hey guys, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a care collaboration update on the Phalaenopsis Sogo Vivien. Mine is the Leaf's Edge version, which is the variegated version. And this is going to be a care collaboration with 6 different YouTube channels: Simply Orchids, Trisha's Orchid Life, Attainable Green, Hillbilly Orchids, Svelte's Orchids, and of course, Ninja Orchids. So I'm going to give you an update on how this is doing. And before jumping right in, if you guys are new here, I'm based in New York City and I grow all of my orchids indoors. And in New York City right now, we have pretty good humidity. So in the spring and the summer, we have pretty hot, humid days, but in the winter, we have very dry, cold winters. So I'm always dealing with very terrible conditions in the winter, but the conditions in the spring and summer are ideal. I grow everything under LED lights, including the Sogo Vivien. And to give you an update, Sogo Vivien's doing well. So I got this orchid about 2 years ago. She is set up in a Leca self-watering system, and I've got a layer of pebbles on top. As you can see, it bloomed already. It had 2 spikes. This bloomed for me back in February. This orchid stays in bloom for a pretty long time, and it's bloomed previously for me in the past 2 years. So it's bloomed like 4 times for me. It was nice to get double spikes last year. And as I mentioned, they stay in bloom for like 2-3 months. So it's really nice. Now the blooms on this one are really cute. They're very pink and very cute little blooms compared to other Phalaenopsis type orchids. This one's kind of like a miniature and the blooms stay pretty small. But you guys already know that. Let's talk about how this orchid is actually doing. So, I mean, I'll say that this orchid is probably in need of a repot at some point. It's been in this setup about 2 years. The roots look nice and healthy with the exception of one. There's actually one root that is growing into the water reservoir and does really well. You can see it's firm. No matter how much water it gets, it stays nice and firm. So that's pretty nice. But otherwise, at some point, I'm going to have to repot this. I might wait until next year. I did a lot of repots this year, so I'm a little lazy with my orchids that I know that are doing well. This isn't root bound, but I think it'd be a good idea to freshen things up before it gets root bound. So this orchid bloomed and gave me double spikes. As I mentioned, the blooms last for like 2 to 3 months. And in terms of immediate next steps with this orchid, I'm probably going to cut off the spike that dried up. And then there's another spike that hasn't really dried up. I might leave it and it might branch off. I find that this orchid blooms for me twice a year. It's a vigorous one. The only time that I really worry about it is in the winter, where I have, instead of 62% humidity, I'll have 20% humidity. So some of the aerial roots do get a little bit dry, but I'm not too concerned because most of the roots grow right down into the Leca. So it's got a nice humid system. This is a warm grower, so I haven't had any issues with the Leca. So I do have a Phalaenopsis bellina, for instance, which is a very hot grower that won't do well with Leca because Leca can be a little bit cooling, but I haven't had any issues. I've had this orchid in the winter in 60-degree temperatures and no issues at all with it growing. So I would say that this is a warm grower, not a hot grower. And it's not as sensitive as some of the species like the Phalaenopsis bellina. And so far, it's growing really well. If this orchid weren't doing so well, I would probably cut this spike off that's still kind of fresh. But since it's growing just fine, I think I'm just going to leave it. I might cut it off just above one of those nodes and it'll branch off most likely. This orchid does tend to branch off, and if it's healthy, it's fine to leave it. But if it's not healthy, it's best to cut it off. Overall, I'm happy with how this orchid is growing and progressing. It's doing really well in my environment here in New York City. Do check out the other videos that are linked down in the description to check out how some other folks are growing this orchid in different environments. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more orchid content. Bye, everyone.